For almost 40 years now, learning this song has been like the bar exam for any aspiring metal guitar player, but why should we still care? In today's video, we're going to talk about why. Hey kids, it's your good buddy, Uncle Ben. Over my many years as a guitar teacher and touring musician, I've learned thousands of songs, and they've all taught me something that stuck with me and helped me along the way. Mastering tunes makes us better players, and that's why every guitarist should learn Master of Puppets by Metallica. Aspiring shred-eye knights in training have been woodshedding this tune for decades now, and that's because if you master puppets, you're going to have access to basically every technique that you need to become a more better metal shredder. But I know what you're thinking. What the hell is that dripping sound? And what's with the big green tub on the floor? Well guys, I've got some great news for you. The roof of my studio is leaking.
Hell yeah.
Thankfully, none of my gear got damaged, and they're working on it tomorrow, but I'm not about to let a little bit of drippy roof water keep me from telling you guys why you should be working on this legendary tune. And besides, with that steady drip of water going, this video can become my first foray into the world of guitar ASMR. Give me your money. In today's video, I'm going to give you guys a handful of the reasons that we keep coming back to this tune decade after decade. And if you want to get the most out of it, check out the extended and ad-free cut that's available over on my Patreon page at patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. People are saying it's the greatest place on the internet. I'm not arguing with them. Sign up today, even for just $1 a month. You're going to get access to hundreds of exclusive posts, bonus videos, backing tracks, downloadable tabs, and so much more. So don't delay. Sign up today. For playing one of my favorite songs of all time, it only makes sense for me to play my favorite guitar of all time. This is my Suhr Modern Satin, and I'll be playing that today into the Fractal Audio Axe FX 3. Now let's get into it. Let's start by talking about the first riff of the song and the power of the pop and lock. So throughout that riff, we have a mixture of open low E palm mutes and accented fretted notes that don't get palm muted. Having control of those dynamics in your playing is vital if you ever want to sound half as awesome as James and Kirk do, but this is something that a lot of novice players struggle with because they're constantly kind of lifting their hand on and off of the strings to get the accented and palm muted sounds. For somebody new to this stuff, it might look something like this. It's this big lifting off the strings movement, a lot of wasted motion, and it's really hard to get that up to speed. And it's all over Metallica's catalog. But learning tunes like Master of Puppets helped me learn how to do the pop and lock technique for mastering those accents. Here's what I mean. Whenever I'm going from the palm muted notes to the not palm muted notes, it's not necessarily just a matter of me taking my wrist and lifting it on and off of the strings like that. That's really clumsy, and my picking has enough to worry about as it is without also worrying about navigating, getting on and off of the strings. Instead, what I tend to do, and what a lot of players do, is this kind of pop and lock move with the elbow. You see this right here? I don't have to change the angle of my wrist or anything and come on and off the strings like that. I just kind of take my elbow and think about putting it slightly behind the guitar, and that's enough to lift my picking hand away from the strings. I can also snag that with a downstroke on my way out. Check it out and watch especially my elbow doing this pop and lock move as I come on and off the bridge. That technique encourages you to keep your forearm on the face of the guitar, which puts your hand right where it needs to be on the strings. And you just kind of use that elbow like it's a latch or a lever to get that hand on and off of the strings. I think about it being kind of like the way that the arm on a record player moves the needle. The needle itself doesn't actually move, right? It just needs to stay in the groove. And that's exactly what this pop and lock technique can do for your rhythm playing. Now let's talk about the main riff of the tune and the power of the outstroke. Let me tell you guys a true story about how powerful that Bad Larry of a riff is. Flashback about 20-something years ago, I played that sick riff over the phone to a cute little girl I met down at the Walmart. Fast forward about 10 years later, she done married my ass. Causation or correlation? I say yes. One of the sickest riffs ever, and if you're not playing it all downstroke, you're just not playing it right. But there's a trick to doing this, and this is a tune that really helped me improve my downstroke power. Check this out. Whenever you say downstroke, you automatically think about the pick going, well, down, right, towards the floor. Here's the problem with that. If you're playing this with literal downstrokes that are going down towards the A string, for example, then what you end up doing is going through the E string and then having to kind of do this semicircular arc to get back over the E to reload and do the next pick stroke. If you feel like your picking hand is kind of bouncing, like you're doing like turbo yo-yo speed whenever you play this riff, that means you're probably going straight down and doing that semicircular arc. That's what it feels like. Now, if you watch James play, and of course he's the most noteworthy downstroke player that's ever lived, you'll notice that he doesn't really do this. He does more of what I call outstrokes. Check this out. Do you see that move? I'm not literally going down and colliding with the A string. That has a speed limit. James does more of an outward stroke like this. Almost think about like a woodpecker, you know, smacking a telephone pole or something. That's what my picking hand feels like when I do the James Hetfield outstroke. So try this out. If you're struggling getting your downstroke speed up to snuff, try changing it more to an outstroke sort of approach. You'll notice that the pick is kind of brushing over the top of the string as it moves out and away from the face of the guitar like that. Gives it a good like meaty, aggressive attack. Which you gotta have if you want to play this stuff accurately, and I know you do. And for bonus points, try doing like what your stepmom told me, and use 3 fingers, just like James did. There's a really important fret hand skill you can learn when you master the verse of this tune. Check this out. It's such an important technique that I have a whole video devoted to it here on my channel. I call it the pivot, and it's something that I don't see people talking about enough. Let's go Missy Elliott style, flip it and reverse it so you can get a better angle on what I'm talking about. Do you see what's going on here with my left hand? How it's kind of swinging off of the thumb right here? This is the pivot technique that I'm talking about. You got to master this if you want to be able to slide those power chords up and down the neck like you need to in that verse. Whenever I'm doing this, I'm not repositioning the hand with every power chord move. That would look like this. I struggle to even do it anymore because I'm so used to doing the pivot. Whenever you pick your hand up and off the neck like that, that's giving you an opportunity to mess up whenever you reset it. This is really hard, especially if you're singing and playing like James does. It is a setup for a disaster because you never know if you're setting your hand back down at the right point. But whenever you put that thumb in a central position on the neck, like around fret, I don't know, 4 or 5 for that verse riff, it's where all the sliding occurs. Your left hand has like an anchor point that it can swing off of and accurately do those slides. It's also a lot less fatiguing than picking up and moving that thumb around every time that you're changing positions on the neck. This is really critical if you want to master those sliding power chords, so be sure to master the pivot technique whenever you work on the verse of the song. If you want to become a great metal guitar player, you have to work on building your endurance, and that's where the chorus part of this song comes in. You've really got to strategize your endurance if you want to be able to play long songs like this non-stop. And part of that involves finding your rest breaks throughout a song. Whenever I get to that part of the tune, I'm trying to let my arm relax as much as possible. I'm kind of like resting it on the body of the guitar while I'm holding out those chords. I know here recently you went through your stepdad's internet search history and you found him looking for something called a endurance trainer. This isn't that exactly, but it can still help him go longer and stronger. The middle part of the tune features that beautiful clean section. This is the perfect opportunity for you to learn some damn chords. There's a really common misconception that I see among guitar players that if you can play some blistering yin-yang valvoline solo section, that playing, the relatively simpler chords should be beneath you or easy. But in reality, there's no overlap between those techniques. Just because you can shred doesn't mean that you can strum. It's a completely different set of muscle memory, finger-independent skills, and so on. I see a lot of players out there skip over chord playing and go straight to learning sick riffs and solos and everything. But if you do that, you're missing out on an extremely important part of the entire guitar experience. I guarantee you bust that out for your stepmom. She's going to thank you for finally making some real music around the house. And while you're at it, tell her to give me my damn Whitesnake shirt back. And while we're in that section of the tune, this is also a great place that you can learn how to do that awesome violin volume swell technique that you hear. To make that sound, start off with your guitar's volume control all the way down, and then either really strongly hammer on or pick the note that you want the audience to hear. After you've done that, slowly roll that volume knob up. It should give you that nice, soft violin-like sound because you're cutting off the initial attack of the string. You can learn a lot about writing guitar harmonies if you learn both parts of the arpeggio section of the tune. There's this guy. And he's getting played at the same time as this guy. So this section is based around the notes in the E minor scale, which are E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, and E. There's also a D sharp in there at one point from the harmonic minor scale. Yeah, you watch Adam Neely's channel. I get it. You want to fight about it? And the way that Kirk and James are harmonizing here is something that we call thirds. A really great, easy way to understand this is using what I call the leapfrog technique of harmony. This is where one guy's on one note of the scale, and the other guy leapfrogs over the next note of the scale to play the one in front of it. So in other words, if one guy here is playing A, the other guy's not going to play B, he's going to leapfrog over it and play the next note in the scale, which is C. You can see that all the way through here. The first arpeggio that one guitar plays is E, B, and G. Now if we go through here and we build that leapfrog method, we'll see that for the E, if we leapfrog in the scale, we're going to be playing a G on top of it. If we do that leapfrog method starting from the B, that means the other guy is going to be playing D. If we do the leapfrog method over G, that means the other guy is going to be playing B. So E, B, G will end up harmonizing with that leapfrog method with G, D, and B. The short solo that we hear in that section is played by James, and if you learn it and analyze the chords it's being played over, you can learn a ton about note targeting in your soloing, and here's this word again, harmony. Let's start with the very first note that he plays and how it relates to the chords that he's playing over, because that's what makes a melodic solo memorable. He starts off on E, while the chord behind him is on the E minor chord. He's playing the root note of that chord. In other words, he's playing something that's already there. I have this idea where I don't think of it as lead guitar, I think of it as follow guitar, because good lead playing follows the chord changes. And James is really great at doing this. And that's what makes for good, memorable hooks. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Kirk's main solo in here is pretty challenging just due to the sheer speed of the song. But there's certain licks that you can learn inside of here that really teach you a lot about combination playing. What I mean by that is sometimes using picked notes, sometimes using hammer-ons and pull-offs, and how you can strategize that to make your picking more efficient. Like take for example the first lick that we hear in the solo. Kirk is using a classic bit of guitar player strategery here whenever he plays that lick at speed. The easiest way to understand this is to not pick whatever the last note on the string is. So in other words, here on the high E string we start off with the A and E notes, right? E is the last note on the string. Don't pick it, meaning do a pull-off. And then for this part, we play C, B, C on the B string. You'll notice right there I'm using a hammer-on to play that last note. So whatever the last note on the string is, just don't pick it. It's a small thing, but that strategy of don't pick the last note makes a huge difference. While we're on the subject, let's just talk about Kirk here for a second, because I feel like he gets so much unfair, undeserved hate in the guitar community. We're all joking about his vibrato and his wah pedals taped to his shoes and stuff, right? But my friend Brent, dude, I was talking to him about this one time, and he made a really great point. Kirk has never claimed to be like the god of guitar. I've never read an interview where Kirk has been like, oh man, I've revolutionized lead playing on the new album. I've totally stepped it up. Good luck, little boys, keep up with me, you know? He's never said anything like that. He's never claimed to be anything that he's not. So to give Kirk a hard time for writing these super memorable solos that fit the songs that they're in, I think that's just not really fair to the guy. Leave Kirk alone. There's a really important lesson you can learn about your rhythm playing if you master that riff towards the end of the song that has the subtle gallop and the scale run in it. You know the one I'm talking about. Did you see it? Let me do it a little bit more slowly to make sure you can catch it. Watch the picking hand. It was all downstroke, like every other riff in the song, except for one note that did get an upstroke, and there is a reason for that. Okay, people talk about James's all downstroke playing, and that is so misleading because he's not an all downstroke player. James is a downstrokes on eighth notes player. In other words, whenever a riff is going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, that means it's eighth notes. That means James is going to play those with really aggressive downstrokes. Now, whenever James plays a riff that subdivides the beat more deeply into 16th notes, 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and whenever a note in a riff lands on E or James will use an upstroke. Check it out. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. Okay, I call that the Het method because that's how all of his rhythm playing is done. Whenever I learned this riff for the first time, I couldn't do the downstroke thing, and I tried doing it with all alternate picking. It looked and sounded something like this. It always felt and sounded really awkward, and part of that is because I was asking my picking hand to do two different speeds. Okay, when I'm playing the eighth notes, duh, 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 it's one thing. And then whenever I go to the little gallop, ba-da-dum, I have to accelerate my picking hand to twice the speed it was a second ago. Watch again. Now, if you attack that riff with the het method, we're going to do downstrokes as long as it's eighth notes and only implement an upstroke whenever it's 16th note time, you'll notice that your hand feels much smoothlier. Check this out. Whenever you play that way, the hand is just grooving one speed the whole time. Songs like Disposable Heroes are a perfect example of this too. Downstroke 8s, alternate 16s. That's the het method, and if you're playing that riff with that, it's gonna sound and feel great and make you a way tighter rhythm player, I guarantee you. Side note about that riff, it is a huge pain in the ass to play, even if you are using his method. I've heard James say that's how he knows he's ready to go out on stage, is if he can play that riff. So keep that in mind. Stay loose, stay relaxed, and get into it. Huge shout out to my buddy Josh Rivera from the band Dead Pioneers for suggesting this topic for a video idea. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to check out his band and say, "Thanks Josh," in the comments. Thanks Josh. Years ago, I learned that tune because I loved how sick all the riffs in it were, and it wasn't until years later that I realized how much it actually taught me about playing guitar and how much that carried over into other songs that I was working on too. It's a virtual toolkit of metal techniques, and I think every guitar player should learn it. Learn more tunes, guys. Seriously, that is the way to become a more better shredder today, is by working more on tunes. Less time sitting in front of your metronome playing along with exercises, more time working on tunes. I swear, if there's a technique that you need to learn, there's a song out there that can show it to you. Let me know in the comment section what technique you're struggling with right now, and maybe the next video will be one that'll help you out with it. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell for notifications every time I upload a new slice of fried gold here for you. And if you want to get even more out of this video and access to an awesome community of people just like yourself and tons of bonus content, check out that Patreon page today over at patreon.com/BenEllerGuitars. Well guys, it's been fun as always, but I think I need to go call a roofer to help me with my situation here. As for you guys, I recommend getting away from the computer machine, grabbing that guitar of yours, and getting to work on this legendary tune. Less clicking, more picking. Or in my case, less dripping, more ripping.